Welcome back, everybody. John Arvosis here in Chicago, not DC, as if it is visiting Chicago for the month. But welcome, guys. I'm going to clean my glasses here. And then let me welcome in the TikTok folks as well. Where is this? Hang on a sec. TikTok. There they are. TikTokers, go live, be free. Boom and boom. There we go with the TikTokers. Woo! Hey, everybody. As always, introduce yourselves. I'm going to see who the first TikToker is, just for fun. Always fun to see who makes it, if it's Man to Bear. Nope, Tiffany. Tiffany, you've been first a number of times, too. Yulia, good to see you, too. I'm actually recognizing some of you. Oh, welcome, TikTokers. Welcome, YouTubers and Facebookers and Twitterers, if you're there. Remaining Twitterers. Hey, WHD. Allison. Hey, Footy. I'm looking back and forth here. Everybody, introduce yourselves and where you're from, if you would. Usually we go about 5 minutes. Kostyu from Ukraine. Nice to meet you. Remember, everybody, throw a few sunflowers in there on TikTok for Kostyu from Ukraine. I didn't see I saw the Russians claiming, I'm just sort of reading the comments on TikTok. I saw the Russians claiming that they took over Kherson. It's not quite clear if they've taken it over yet entirely, but they're claiming it. But they've been claiming Mariupol now for a week plus, 2 weeks now, and there's still fighting going on. So hard to say. Ireland, Cyril Ireland. Did not know that was a place. Oh, what else we got here? Bulgaria. Oh, Bulgaria. Nice. Chelsea, New York. Already pretty flowers from Disney. Thank you for that. Hi, England. Thank you, McCoy or McCoyote. Idaho. Hey, I knew good people from Idaho. Ashley, thank you already for the beautiful universe. Or galaxy, I should say. Not universe. It's a galaxy. Oh, Gatwick. I remember the Gatwick person before. Unless there's more of you. Is Tina in Lviv? On YouTube. Hey, Quebec, Ireland, Poland, South Australia. Nice. Kate, thank you for that. Oh, with sunflowers, exactly. I didn't see if our yeah, correct, Stacy. Yeah, that was the story about them flooding, either using the dam. I don't know if they blew it up or not, but they used the dam to flood the north. Exactly. Holland. We've got a lot of you Europeans today. I mean, we always do, but today's looking especially European-y. Glad to see you guys. Banobak, Odessa. Woo! Thank you for joining us from Odessa. Come on, folks. Give Odessa the sunflowers on. There we go. Kelly saw it on TikTok. Whenever we welcome the Ukrainians or anybody in Ukraine, since we can't know for sure if you're Ukrainian, we throw sunflowers at you to welcome you. And we do the same thing when the evil Russian trolls come and try to cause trouble. We throw sunflowers at them too, but for different reasons that we won't get into. Hey, the news guy, Scotland, Odessa, Texas. That's okay. It's not quite the other Odessa, but we welcome Odessa, Texas too. Galway. We'll go for another 2 minutes, guys. I like to just have everybody, take the first 5 minutes, introduce yourselves, where you're from. Hey, Germany. It also gives folks a chance. Dennis Sapon, are you saying you're in Ukraine? I see Kriviri, Ukraine. Unless maybe that's I don't know what that is, Dennis. Dennis Sapon. Ella Ling from Denmark, California, Dublin, Northern Ireland, Scotland, Netherlands. We've got a lot of you Europeans tonight on TikTok. I'm glad to see. I mean, usually we get a good mix, but Finland, nice. Hope to welcome you to NATO soon. Oh, this is good. Rosemont, Illinois. That's good too, though. Kiev. Woo! Somebody else from Kiev. Woo! On TikTok. Thank you for that, Cami. Somebody on TikTok was just from Kiev. There we go. Throw them the flowers. Throw them the sunflowers. Yep, the Lend-lease bill passed, which is good. We'll talk about that too. Okay, guys. Another minute, and then we'll dive right in. Like I said, just take this minute to let folks filter in. We're getting a nice crowd coming up now. And at 5 after, we will jump in with the news. And then after I finish the news, we will do questions and answers. And thank you, Pamela. I never know what those are, though. I keep wondering. They look like almost potato chips or something. I know they're not. They're the doubloons, maybe? I can never quite tell. North Yorkshire, England, Sweden, London. Telling you, the European is strong today. Oh, and my hat. Thank you, Annie. Oh, they're coins. Okay. I was wondering. They look like coins, but they also look like food. So I've been getting like hungry and, Okay, guys. Well, welcome. I'm John Arvosis. I'm actually here in Chicago for the month rather than Washington, D.C., but I'm from Chicago, but I live in Washington, D.C. now and have for decades. Thanks for that, Ashley. And Kipros. Whoa, Ella. So the way we do this is the first 20 minutes or so, I tell you the latest stories of the day, try to give you basically pick the ones that I think are interesting, important, and try to give you a sense of why I think they matter, why I brought them up at all. In other words, I pick stories that I think have some kind of impact on what's going on. Then we will do our Q&A period where anything goes as long as it's Ukraine and Russia related. I am American. I am born here, Greek-American family. Mom's good. She's in the other room. Thank you for the crowns. The way we do the questions is on TikTok, there's a Q&A function. Nepal, that's always kind of cool. There's a Q&A function at the bottom of the screen on TikTok. It literally says Q&A. Use that to submit your questions, because that way they'll come up in a row for me. And you guys on YouTube, you know the drill. You submit your questions just in the question box at the bottom. If you do super chat questions, I always promise to get to those immediately. I won't stop mid-sentence, but I'll get to those immediately, whereas the other questions I will only get to, at the Q&A period. And even if I'm doing the Q&A, if you do a super chat question, I'll always get to those first, just as a thank you for supporting my work. And on TikTok, they don't have super chat questions, but they do let me thank you for the pretty flowers and things. So every time I see those, I will try to jump in and thank you guys. There we go. I guess last point I should mention, thank you for the hat, Yorkshire, is I've got TikTok there and I've got YouTube right down there. So you're going to see me going back and forth. That's why I'm going back and forth, because I got both of you at once. All right, guys, let's jump right in. So the top stories today, the Secretary General of the United Nations, who is the top guy at the United Nations, visited Ukraine. He went to Russia first to meet with Putin. Then he was going to Ukraine next. Thank you for the flowers. Ukraine next to meet with Zelensky. Zelensky was not terribly thrilled about that. A lot of the Ukrainians thought it was inappropriate for him to go to Russia first. They said it might be better for him, the UN Secretary General, to go to Ukraine, see what's happened, and then go to Russia with that knowledge. Nonetheless, he went to Russia first. He goes to Ukraine. What happens when he's in the Ukrainian capital meeting with Zelensky? Putin sends 5 missiles to the capital to bomb the capital while the Secretary General is there. Now, mind you, he doesn't necessarily know where the Secretary General is. He could have killed the Secretary General. Putin didn't care. Secretary General was interviewed later by the BBC and said he was, I believe the word was, shocked that the Russians would bomb while he was there. Welcome to Vladimir Putin's Russia. Good news from Germany. Germany has dropped its opposition to the oil embargo. As you know, there's West Europe. I keep saying Western Europe. God, the Russians have gotten me back into thinking about the Soviets now. Oh, my microphone. Hello. I took my mic off and didn't put it back on. The Russians have got me thinking about Soviet again, and I keep thinking Western Europe and West Germany. Europe is very dependent on Russia for energy, especially oil and natural gas, of course. Those are the two big. Coal, not very much. The Russians, as you know, are starting to play games with this. They cut off Bulgaria and Poland from all natural gas exports from Russia. Fortunately, that's not very significant for those two countries, but clearly it was meant as a threat to Germany that gets a lot of natural gas from Russia, as saying, hey, if you keep supporting Ukraine, we're going to go after you next. So Russia is basically threatening. Pretty much everything Russia does is either a lie or a threat lately. You can really put it, and sometimes the threat is a lie, like when they keep threatening to use nuclear weapons. That would be a lie threat, but you pretty much can put them into both camps. So in any case, Germany, in response, has been very smart about trying to wean itself off of oil. They were at about somewhere between 1/3 and 35% of their oil imports came from Russia. They got it down to 1/4. Now they've got it down to like 12%, I saw yesterday, of their oil is from Russia, which is great. Germany is saying that they believe they can be independent of Russian oil very soon. So they are now willing to discuss an embargo on Russian oil, which would be huge because Russia gets a lot of money from its oil sales to Europe, not Western Europe, to Europe overall. Anyway, it's great news. I mean, Germany has said they want to implement the ban over time. So it may be over a period of 4 months or something to allow them to find alternative sources of oil. But still, it's good news. would help it to kick in sooner, but nonetheless, it's good news. In terms of other aid, President Biden today asked for $33 billion with a B. I always forget for you Europeans what that is, because in France, I think it's, or in Spanish, is it mille millions? I always forget. In French, mille milliards, something like that. But I always get confused with you guys. Or milliard. Anyway, billion with a B in English. $33 billion in aid. That's going to go through Congress. The latest I saw right before joining you guys, it could take until the end of May for that to get passed by Congress. In other words, another 5 weeks. Very complicated bill. $20 million is for military aid. $8 billion is for economic. Thank you for that. I saw that. But that was kind of cool, actually, with the stars falling down. Thank you. $8 billion was for economic aid, and $3 billion is for humanitarian aid. There you go. Important, but that's going to take a while. In the meantime, a bill passed today. I was trying to get a straight answer on it, and I've not gotten a straight answer on it as far as what it does. But basically, they passed a Lend-lease type bill for Ukraine. And I always like that. Thank you. They always like the Borg thing. Lend-lease, as you know, was the big American program to help Europe during World War II. And where we were leasing equipment, military equipment to the Europeans, Britain. And what we are doing now is invoking the same legislation or passing it with regards to Ukraine. And all I can guess, because I've been trying to find, the stories are basically explaining technically what it does, but they're not actually saying what it does. It gives the president authority to blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, but practically, what does that mean? What I can glean from it, and this is just like it passed about an hour ago, it passed. What I can glean from it is this may allow the president to do emergency shipments of weapons to Ukraine, for example, that are not approved by Congress, but are in essence lending them weapons in the American stockpile of weapons that we have for our own defense for a temporary period of time. So that, again, they're lent away rather than being sold. And the idea is he doesn't have to get congressional permission for this. That's my guess. Now, the U.S. would want to be careful, like any country. You can only give so many of the weapons you use to protect yourself. What if there's a conflict in somewhere else in the world, right? But nonetheless, that's what I'm understanding the legislation to be. No one has explained in practice what that means. Like, will Biden provide weapons next week or the week after that would have taken months to provide, and now with this bill he can? Hard to understand. In any case, it's a good thing. Ukraine, another good thing, Ukraine bombed a bridge for a railroad connecting Crimea to southern Ukraine. Now, excuse me, not southern Ukraine, the southern Ukrainian front, because Crimea is southern Ukraine. Crimea, you'll recall, is that peninsula on the south of Ukraine, sticking down to the Black Sea, and the Russians stole it in 2014. So it's still part of Ukraine, but the Russians claim it's part of Russia. Well, Russia now occupies it. They've got their troops there. They've got weapons, and they have been using Crimea to provide fuel and weapons to all of Russia's southern front, taking over southern Ukraine, Mariupol, the town you keep hearing about, other towns in the south there, Kherson. So what the Ukrainians did is they bombed a bridge that was one of the key bridges connecting Crimea to the north, Crimea to the south, so to speak, but going north of Crimea and connecting it to Russia's front over here, which is going to severely impact Russia's fuel and weapons, which is great. One other thing I read, which is an interesting little addition as to why this matters, was without the trains, the Russians will now have to use trucks. And with the trucks, they're going to have basically trucks that have weapons and things on them. They're going to have to use military vehicles to go with the trucks to protect them. And those are military vehicles they otherwise would have used to go fight the Ukrainians further north. So it has an impact of either it's going to cut down the fuel and ammunitions, or it's going to cause the Russians to use troops they otherwise would have used to go fight Ukrainians. So either way, great news on that front. Getting into a little bit of the darker news, hang on a second. Yeah, a little bit of a darker news. The Russians have been, how do I say this? I was going to say genocide, but this is sort of the other side of genocide. This is the subtle side of genocide, but basically where they're trying to wipe out the Ukrainian culture, in essence. What they're doing in school, in the area in the south, particularly near Kherson, which is kind of north of Crimea, basically, but it's Kherson. In that area, the Russians are forcing school teachers these are towns they occupy, forcing school teachers to use a Russian school curriculum, right? So mind you, these are like Ukrainian kids, switching them to a Russian school curriculum, which also means Russian language, by the way. That was what they tried elsewhere in Ukraine. They are forcing them to switch to the ruble from their own local Ukrainian currency. And they're only showing Russian television channels. But as somebody mentioned, I think yesterday, the Ukrainians came in and bombed the local tower, so the Russian TV channels went off the air. So that was a good thing. But I wanted to just mention that because it's more of the, I say subtle, meaning it's more subtle than just killing people, but it's the way they're trying to just wipe out the culture entirely, wipe out the money. Thank you for that. Wipe out the money, wipe out the language, change the education to Russian, right? The other thing is the U.S. said today, one of our ambassadors to the United Nations, I want to say it's a ambassador specialized with human rights, not our main ambassador, said today that there's credible information that a Russian military unit operating in the vicinity of Donetsk, which is in eastern Ukraine, executed Ukrainians who were attempting to surrender rather than taking them into custody. Now, the one thing I was assuming these are Ukrainian troops. That's a quote I took from the article. I'm assuming these are Ukrainian troops who tried to surrender and were shot. Having said that, knowing the Russians, it could have been civilians. I should have just assumed it was troops because we're talking about the Russians. Either way, not surprisingly, big war crime there. Thank you, Technical, on TikTok. That's cute. I appreciate that. Another convoy of trucks. So speaking of convoys, the Russians apparently have been stealing Ukrainian grain stocks. Now, Ukraine produces a huge amount of grain. It's a huge supplier of grain to the world. And the Russians, people have got videos of this, they've filled up trucks with grain, and they are driving these trucks to Crimea to basically give to their troops and their citizens and have it shipped to the rest of Russia. So at the same time that people are starving in parts of Ukraine, the Russians are now stealing their food as well and shipping it back to Russia. Just, amazing. This is good news of a bad story, but good news. You know about Bucha, right? Remember the town we talked about where northwest of Kyiv in the north, one of the first towns the Russians came into. They came in. I'm trying to remember if they came in early March. Yeah, March 5th, March 10th, 8th, somewhere in there in early March. Thank you, Pamela, for that. And did the horrific war crimes. Remember the poor guy riding his bike shot dead, other citizens with their hands tied behind their back and killed, torture of 14 and 16-year-old boys. I mean, horrific war crimes by the Russians there. Well, Ukrainian prosecutors going through a ton of evidence. Thank you for that, Christy, on TikTok. Going through a ton of evidence, have been able to identify, they believe, 10 of the soldiers involved in war crimes. Now, the initial war crimes they're looking at are basically the ones there are witnesses for. And what I mean by that, one quick sip of water. People being executed, this is my gut sense, but saw the hat, thank you. People being executed are going to be harder to prove unless you have a witness to the execution. Because you'd say, okay, we found 5 people tortured and dead in a basement. Who tortured them? Who killed them, right? Whereas I'm going to read to you the examples of what the Ukrainians are actually charging them with. Somebody charged with torture who didn't kill their victims, you've now got the victims as witnesses. You've got the other victims as witnesses. And what they've been able to do is quite literally, they went through social media and they found pictures of these soldiers on social media. I mean, really amazing, research they did. And they've been able to identify them, got witnesses to identify them. Now, the things they're being accused of, they have not gotten to the level of the murderers yet. What they're accusing them of is they took unarmed civilians hostage, did not provide food and water to them, kept them on their knees with their hands tied and their eyes covered in duct tape, and they were mocked and beaten. They used fists and their guns to beat them with. They beat information about the location of Ukrainian armed forces and the defense forces out of them. Some were tortured for no reason at all. Russian servicemen threatened to kill the victims and even did mock executions of the prisoners, firing in their direction with their eyes closed, letting them think they were being killed. Again, what's really stupid in a way about the Russians is they didn't kill any of these people. And now there's a witness to everything they did. I mean, that's stupid that they didn't kill them, but did you think no one was going to know you did this when you did this to people who are alive and people who are walking away? So they've got lots of witnesses, and basically multiple witnesses said, that's the guy, that's the guy, that's the guy, that's the guy, looking at the pictures. Thank you, Ashley. And on TikTok. So anyway, brilliant work by the prosecutors. So they've got the first 10, which is a start. Now, they are from I don't have which battalion written down, but they are from the same battalion or unit that Putin gave the award to this month. Remember, he had awarded the war criminals. This is the same unit of the war criminals Putin awarded. So good news all around on that front. The Russians have, just a small point, but the Russians have stolen over 2,000 works of art from local Ukrainian museums and have taken the art back to Russia, which is really pretty nasty. And, I only have one more story. This was a quick news day, actually. I mean, we could talk about there were a lot of little stories, but there weren't a lot of big stories today. The other just quick thing, and this was a follow-on from the other day. Britain's defense secretary, and I just learned you guys call it a defense secretary. Didn't know. I thought you would say defense minister. But British defense secretary said that, okay, this is interesting. The British defense secretary is asked about Ukraine doing attacks on Russian soil. Now, you may remember, sorry, Jerry, I see you. Okay, I'll pull that up next. I'm sorry, I forgot. I starred your question and then put it in another box and lost it. The British defense secretary was asked about Ukraine hitting Russian soil. We know Ukraine has been hitting towns like Belgorod. They're 20 miles away. There were recent attacks 70 miles inside, 200 miles inside Russian territory. And I mean, people I talk to can't figure out how they got 200 miles inside unless they're literally special forces units driving there. But the Ukrainians have clearly, and thank you for all the roses, I do see all of those. The Ukrainian forces clearly are getting inside Russia and blowing things up. Oil depots, ammunition, right? The Russians have been livid. The Russians threatened this week. Remember, they threatened, for example, they're going to blow up federal government buildings in Kyiv if the Ukrainians keep doing this. So the next night, the Ukrainians attacked 3 places inside Russia, 3 different places. So the Ukrainians said, go to hell. What's interesting is that the British defense secretary basically did the same thing. What the British defense secretary said was that attacks within Russia are totally legitimate targets for Ukraine. And B, and this one I thought was very interesting and important, he said, it is totally legitimate for them to use Western weapons that we supplied them to attack inside Russia. And that was interesting because that's one of the points I've mentioned before that NATO was at least a bit nervous about. Thank you for the hat. That NATO was nervous about. We were nervous about Ukraine using our weapons to attack Russia, inside Russia, and this kind of it would be escalation, all that kind of stuff. Well, the Brits basically turned around and said, forget it. To me, what's interesting is it means they've had it with Russia. They've not only had it with Russia. So Britain, like America, I think has gotten, although the Brits were pretty out there. I mean, Boris Johnson, for all his flaws, was very good on Ukraine. Very, I would say, at the avant-garde in terms of European reaction to what was going on. But what's interesting is that the Brits are turning around and basically telling Russia, you know what? You threatened to nuke us earlier, which they did. Russia threatened to nuke the UK, England earlier this week. And they turned around, the Brits did, and went, screw you, we're going to give them more weapons, and they can use our weapons to attack you on your territory. Haha. So it shows that, at least as far as Britain's concerned, they don't care anymore about the threats. Another country, speaking of the threats and nobody taking Russia seriously anymore, Bulgaria. Bulgaria yesterday gets its oil and gas cut off, natural gas cut off. It was announced on Tuesday. So what does Bulgaria do yesterday? They turned to Ukraine and said, we're going to ship you some weapons to help you in the war against Russia. And now, today, I think he's the prime minister, not the president. The prime minister of Bulgaria is in Ukraine meeting with Zelensky. They just posted a photo together. So another example, though, of Europe and America are starting to get to the point now where Russia has basically bluffed too many times and said, Putin's crazy. He's gonna drop a nuke. Oh my God. And they're finally going, you know what? Just stop it. Just stop it. So that's why I was bringing that story up, because it's good news in the sense of clearly, and what's Putin doing differently anyway. So sorry, Jerry, I had put that question off. I apologize. Do you think if Russia wins and advances into non-NATO countries, when will NATO and other countries step in? That's interesting. Non-NATO. First of all, it's going to depend which non-NATO countries you talk about, right? I mean, potentially, like Moldova, we're not going to be happy about, but, you know, Finland and Sweden could lead to, I mean, for example, let's say they aren't, let's say they don't agree to join NATO. Let's say Finland decides to and Sweden decides not to. Russia attacks Sweden. At the very least, you're going to have the same situation you've got with Ukraine, where everyone's supporting them. I don't know, thank you for the origami, I don't know whether we would commit troops or not to Sweden, especially if they literally just decided not to join NATO, would be a little weird, you know? Ireland, that's an interesting question too. Somebody just posted Ireland. Mind you, it would be a little hard for Putin to get to Ireland. You know what I mean? I mean, like, he's not attacking Great Britain, but he's attacking Ireland. I don't know how easy that would be, but it's going to depend on the country. I mean, Ireland, for example, you've got a huge number of Irish Americans. So Ireland, I mean, not that Putin can attack Ireland because it's kind of weird because it's far away, but Putin would attack Ireland, move the Navy off there, do what? I think you're going to see a very strong response from America simply because we've got such a strong Irish American community here. And in our politics, the ethnic politics matter a lot in this country. People are still very proud of their ethnicity, and the Irish are a strong, Irish Americans are a strong constituency, so that could have an impact. But I don't know, simply going after a non-NATO country is enough to get us involved, unless, for example, like we talked about war crimes and things, you start doing these kind of things to the Swedes and the Irish and everything else that they're doing in Ukraine. Is that enough? I mean, who knows? I don't know. I think, let me go back to the beginning and then I'll start with this. What I've always said was I felt like Russia was going to have to go too far, but too far was going to be some horrific war crime that was caught on tape, them committing it live for NATO to get involved, meaning we put troops on the ground. We establish a no-fly zone where we say we're going to shoot Russians out of the sky if you come in there. I still feel the same way with the non-NATO. It would have to be something so outrageous, and it's going to have to be a country we're close to. We're not close to Moldova. We are close to Sweden. So, Paul, I don't know if you meant to throw in a question. If you did, post. Otherwise, thank you if that was just a contribution. If it was meant for a question, throw it below, if you would. I mean, for free. Obviously, just throw it in there if I missed it. Okay, I'm going to jump over to TikTok. And remember, guys, on TikTok, you can submit your questions via the Q&A box at the bottom. And I very much appreciate all the funky little stuff you guys throw up on TikTok. So thank you for the images and the graphics. Russia may. I'm going to take the very first question. Igor, Creed fan, says, do you think Russia will attack Moldova? It's been very strange what's going on with Moldova. So Moldova, small former Soviet, so part of the Soviet Union, it was, on the, I'll say southwest. My geography is not great, but I know it's over here, southwestern corner of Ukraine. You've got Moldova, and there's a strip of land called Transnistria in Moldova that broke away 30 years ago. The Russians kind of helped. It's a there's still like 1,700 Russian troops there. It's kind of a mess, and Russia seems to be blowing things up in Transnistria and blaming it on Ukraine, and it's looking like they want to get in there. And the Carpathians, exactly. Vlad, my friend Vlad called something Transcarpathia. And I was like, Carpathia? Isn't that where like Dracula lives? And he was like, no, that's Romania. I was like, all right, whatever. But thank you for the origami, Pamela. Clearly Putin is creating some kind of justification for war. And I don't know why. It doesn't make any sense why you'd want to get Moldova involved. There's only 1,700 Russian troops there, so it's not like that makes a big difference. Also, Russia can go in anyway and have those troops invade Ukraine if he wants. He's already at war with Ukraine. He doesn't need Transylvania. Yeah, but but aren't the Carpathian Mountains in Transylvania as well? For some reason, I remember, sorry, we're getting off on Dracula and Transylvania here, but I thought whenever I hear the Carpathian Mountains, I think of Dracula and Transylvania. Do the Carpathians not go that far? TikTok, I'm waiting for you to back me up on this. I know Transylvania, but the mountains I'm talking, the mountains. Transylvania is a region, not a mountain. I know that part. Okay, Paul, let me pull that up. Let's see here. Vigo the Carpathian, Ghostbusters. Now I've got everybody, the mountains. Don't the mountains go into to Transylvania as well? I know they're in Ukraine too. Entrance to Europe. Okay. All right, let's see. I don't think I'm wrong about this, but we'll see. All right. Transylvania is a region of Romania. The mountain range is there. Thank you. The Carpathians are there. Thank you. All right. All right. I don't want to keep going on such a tangent here, but I remember the Carpathian Mountains. I was telling Vlad, which is funny, the friend in Ukraine who's been doing all the fundraising. He's been the one helping us help people with food and everything else, but he mentioned Transcarpathia, and I said Carpathia. Anyway, it was very funny. All right, Paul Hammond asks, so do you think once Ukraine wins, Russia might have to decrease the amount of nukes? I don't think so. I mean, I guess I would have to ask you why you think that. And again, you don't have to buy another question. You could just respond. But why you think it would force Russia to decrease the amount of nukes? Russia is going to decrease its amount of nukes because of, two or three things. One, they just decide it's in their interest for whatever crazy reason. All I can think of is it's too expensive or something. And they decide, my hair's exploding again today. They decide it's just too expensive and they want to decrease the number of nukes they have. Okay, maybe. Two, they reach an arms control treaty with the United States and we all just decide to limit our nukes further, and that's what happens. Three, Russia is so beaten in the war, like Germany after World War II, that we disarm them. I don't see that happening, but that would be the third thing. So I don't see a situation where even if Ukraine wins, and I think Ukraine will win, but even if Ukraine wins, how you force Russia to decrease its nukes, because we aren't going to occupy Russia. We aren't going to take over Moscow, right? I mean, that's the kind of stuff that could lead to a really bad war if literally Moscow is about to be overrun by Americans, or anybody else. So I just don't see it happening. Yeah, I don't see it happening. I think it would be, I think most likely it's by some kind of future treaty, Vlad the Impaler. Oh, Vlad the Impaler. Maybe that's what I'm thinking too. Possibly, not to get us back on that again. Jerry Deering, yesterday's videos came out of Russian warships. Oh, yesterday videos came out of Russian war. You guys crack me up. I feel like I'm editing a paper. Yesterday, comma. I'm a big fan of commas. Yesterday, videos came out of Russian warships on the horizon off of Odessa. I saw that. The funny part was I saw the video, but I couldn't actually see the warship. Like they were showing the video kind of going in and out, and I kept looking, going, where are the warships? I'm guessing they must have been really small on the horizon. I couldn't see them, but yes, I'm aware of this. What would happen if those ships accidentally hit a ship not helping Ukraine in any way, like a cargo ship? It's happened before. I mean, the Ukrainians, was it the USS Cole? I think. Remember the Ukrainians hit? Something that's really an accident isn't necessarily an act of war. I mean, it's not an act of war if it's really an accident. During the U.S. bombing of Serbia, which was totally justified, let me just throw out there, because the Russians and the Serbs still get very upset about it. Commit genocide, you get bombed by NATO, and hopefully everybody else. But the bombing of Serbia, we accidentally bombed the Chinese embassy in Belgrade, which was kind of a big oops moment. Fortunately, China did not declare war on us. They were very upset. I think I don't know if we had to pay reparations or something, but in other words, if you can prove something was really an accident, it's not an act of war. If they did it on purpose, it is an act of war, it just depends on the country they hit and whether they want to declare war, but it would be an act of war, yes. But only if it's on purpose, I would say. All right. Hey, got lots of questions popping in now. Jesse, ready? Oh, thank you. Okay, thank you. You're very welcome. It's funny because without my glasses, I can read stuff, but it takes me a second, so I didn't quite see that was a thank you. Thank you, Jesse. Harvey, what are you going to stump me with tonight? The British Foreign Secretary stated we need to be protecting. I knew you're going to that. I don't know what that flag is. The same way we should have been. I don't know what that flag is. You're going to have to somebody tell me. He's being mean to me. Harvey's being mean. The same way we should have protecting Ukraine before the war, calling for a global NATO, including Japan, South Korea, etc. Could this happen in consequences? I mean, I'm going to guess, is that Taiwan? I can't think of who else we should be talking about protecting in that way. Is it Taiwan? Who is it? Now, this does get to the issue we had talked about. So I'm going to scroll down and see for somebody to tell me whose flag that is as we're talking. It is Taiwan's. Okay. I was guessing Taiwan because who else would be logical there? I only found out the other day that NATO isn't restricted to Europe and North America. I mean, it's the North Atlantic Treaty Association or organization, excuse me. But I had no idea, like it's not exclusive to that. So Japan could be welcomed, anybody else. So you've got the first issue of you could have a global, actually, you know what? I'm sorry. He may have been when I saw you say he called for a global NATO, I thought you meant a global organization like NATO. He may have been literally calling for NATO to go global and start including South Korea and Japan and others. That's very interesting. Taiwan becomes its own barrel of monkeys there as far as how one goes about protecting them and all of that. But I think that's really interesting. About including them. I mean, we should, because we already have a commitment to Japan. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the U.S.'s commitment to Japan and South Korea, they get overrun, they get defended, I would think. I mean, they're especially those two. They're our strongest allies in the region that I can think of, really. I don't think I'm missing anybody. That's interesting. Yeah, no, could it happen? I mean, the could it happen is a tough one because you're getting into politics there. You know what I mean? My guess, well, okay, two things. One, do Japan and Korea want to join NATO where then they're defending everybody else, right? So Japan and Korea, for example, would have to go to war with Russia, would have to, all this stuff. Two, would we want them, and would we want, for example, would American citizens be happy with the argument that if South Korea gets attacked or Japan gets attacked, that America's at war, no matter what? Now, we've given a lot of security guarantees anyway to those countries, but you know, I don't know. I think it's not a bad idea. You know, you're kind of getting Star Trek-y there in terms of the Federation, not just the Federation. I mean, the what's it called on Earth itself? I'm forgetting, but you know, or is it the Federation President on Earth? I guess. You know, getting sort of more of a global government that isn't the UN, but some kind of global organization for self-protection isn't a terrible idea. No. Now, you could run into the danger, I'm going to find the other questions here. You could run into the danger that the World War I problem, right, where everybody starts declaring war on each other as a result of treaties and things like that. If you get too large of a treaty organization, then it's going to be very easy to have a world war start, right? So there is that issue. Anna, I think this is or Arnas, was this what you were asking about? I saw this question earlier, and then I saw you say, I hope John responds, but I think this is the one you meant. We didn't cover it yet. I mean, well, here's the thing. We didn't cover it. I saw it. I wasn't sure it's really news yet. So basically, Moscow appears to be preparing for the May 9th celebration, the victory in Europe over the Nazis, right? Celebration comes on May 9th. This is also the day that Putin has already told his military he wants victory by then, whatever that means, over Ukraine, so he can pronounce a huge victory before all of his people, right? You know, Evita style. And already through the streets of Moscow, they were parading, whether it was tonight, it might have even been tonight, because I saw a video, it was dark out, some of their big nuclear weapon systems, you know, some of their big ICBMs or whatever. And Russia does that kind of crazy stuff. They just, it's weird. Like, actually, even for us in France, though, when you guys do your big military parade on the 14th of July, or whatever, or, 14 juillet, we find it weird. I mean, Trump wanted to do one, actually. He saw the one in France, and he wanted to do one here. And a lot of us were kind of like, we don't do, I mean, we do local parades like Memorial Day, but it's kind of a local thing we'll do, and people honor the military, but in their hometown, it's kind of cute and small. We don't typically have parades with big, certainly not nuclear weapons going down the street. That would just be bizarre to Americans, let alone in weapons. We did it once, not with nukes, but with weapon systems going down the street after the invasion of Iraq, the first one, the good one. And Bush held a celebration in Washington, D.C. with all the tanks and everything else going down downtown D.C., which was very interesting. And at first I was a little like, and I went, and it was quite nice. But nonetheless, we tend not to do that. But yeah, I wasn't sure what to say about it. I mean, they're doing it. They're freaks. I'm sort of picking up on the word freak because I saw Cha-Cha say it on TikTok. But, you know, this is what the Russians do, and it's part of their threats. They're going to show all their little nuclear missiles and say, ooh, we have nukes. You know, I told you that, like that cartoon I put up yesterday, somebody posted of this little student with Vladimir Putin's face, and he's holding up a picture of a nuclear weapon. And the teacher goes, yes, Vladimir, this is the 9th week in a row that you've told us all that you have nukes. We know. I mean, it's just silly at this point. But yeah, they're being silly. This is part of their macho BS that isn't working, I would say. Make sure I'm not forgetting anything else. Oh, there we go, Jerry. Oh, last one. The islands that Japan and Russia are having a tiff over, the Kuril Islands. If Russia attacks those islands, what happens? Japan is saying it's theirs and vice versa. Now, I need to Google this to see what the latest is on this, but I thought they were occupied by Russia, aren't they? Aren't they Russian occupied already or not? The Kurils. I don't recall. For example, I could see Japan and Russia get into like a war over those islands. We are clearly going to support Japan, but I would see us supporting Japan occupied by Russia. That's what I thought. Thank you. Sorry, somebody just said on TikTok. That's what I thought it was. So Russia invading the islands might not happen, I guess is what I was saying, because they already have them, so to speak. But let's pretend war does break out between Russia and Japan over those islands. I would see the U.S. doing a Ukraine where we would support Japan and give them all the weapons they need to destroy the Russians. If Russia then but let's say Russia decides in response, it wants to take more of Japan, and it like lands on the mainland and starts taking land. That gets pretty bad. And I'm not sure what happens then, because that gets into a situation where there's no way I think the U.S. would allow Japan to be, taken over, occupied by the Russians. I don't know that they could, mind you. I don't know, the military situation there, but I think that's when you'd see the U.S. say, whether we've set up a no-fly zone or something. Well, and okay, there you go. We have military bases in Japan. Do we have them in the north there? I know, they're further south. Like I was in Okinawa, which I think is further south. I don't think it's not Okinawa. Okinawa, yeah, I was in Okinawa. But I don't know about further up. Any case, yeah, I mean, we've got military bases there, so it depends. Japan is not NATO. No. That's what we were talking about earlier. Is somebody was asking on TikTok? Is that Japan? But we just that NATO is not restricted to Europe and North America, but we don't have any members outside of Europe and North America. The only North Americans are us and the Canadians, and then you got Europe. That's NATO. Yokosuka, okay, in the north, okay, that's interesting then. Well, I mean, the only thing is, okay, but you could still say, if we've got bases in the north, would the Russians say, okay, America, you've got bases, that's nice, we're going to avoid your bases. We're just going to invade and take over all of Japan, and we'll just avoid your bases. So NATO still is in this position of, okay, what do we do? Any case, we've got all sorts of treaties, like people are already posting here. So I don't know what the treaties even say or anything else, but if it was just fighting over the islands, we would have a Ukraine situation where we would help them with everything we've got, but we probably would not commit troops. If it's anything else, if they touch the mainland, then all bets, I think, are off, potentially. That'd be my gut. Thank you. The thumbs up. I keep forgetting that. Be kind. Thank you. Be kind says, hit the thumbs up button. That's true. I do keep forget to tell you people, follow me if you would. I always forget to add this. Please follow me. Hit the little thumb up or like button on these things. I'm definitely not a Jew, but I'd be proud if I were a Jew. If you're talking about me, kind of a weird comment to put there. Skating on thin ice. Just warning you there on TikTok. Okay. I don't see any questions here that I've missed. I could go back to another TikTok. If I missed a question on let me know on YouTube, TikTok. Interesting question. It's written very small. I think it's Ishnobi asks, why has the Ukraine war news died down? It has a little. I was going to say has it, but it has a little bit. I noticed, like when I watched CNN now last night, the first story was about homelessness in America. And then maybe 8 or 10 minutes in, they then shifted to talk about the latest from Ukraine. They've still got some of their staff over, the correspondents. I think Anderson Cooper, who's their probably most famous guy, is still in Ukraine, which is good. But it's died down a little, just because Jules was saying died down, but it has a little in that, like I said, some of the American news now starts with other news and then does Ukraine. Or they'll do Ukraine and then they'll do other news. But initially, we were having 15, 20 minutes of Ukraine and then other news. So it's died down a little bit. I think that's natural to some degree as time goes on. I also think, well, somebody's mentioning TikTok. No, that's true. On TikTok, forget it. Because TikTok, People will literally contact me on TikTok and go, "Oh my God, you're doing Ukraine again." And I'm like, "I've been doing Ukraine every day. TikTok just isn't showing it to you." So on TikTok, for example, you've got to go visit the people you like because you may not see their content. And then make sure you click it, make sure you do all that kind of stuff, right? So that's the first thing. The other thing, what were we saying with TikTok? And I'm looking here. I don't know. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, with the Ukraine war news, I think it just kind of, okay, Timothy, I'll write your question. I'll see it. I think that it's kind of natural too that over time people do get a little. I like CNN actually. I think CNN's a great network, to be honest. But I think people do get tired over time. I mean, I'm a unique breed of person, but you guys may be as well, that you're so invested in this and you so care about this. Not everybody does, So I think it's going to die down some, but there's still ongoing interest. Let me put it this way. What I don't see people less interested, meaning they're saying, well, okay, we've done enough. We don't need to do more to help Ukraine. We've done enough. I do not see that at all out of people. And that's what would worry me. I'm less worried, if people aren't scouring the news every second for what's up about Ukraine, which we were at the beginning. That doesn't bother me. What bothers me is if people are like, let's stop giving them weapons. Let's stop helping them. That would be a concern. There you go, Timothy. All right, I'll save Jerry's. I'll get to next. And Timothy's question. Could Russia preemptively attack Finland before they join NATO to create a state of war? Yes, but just keep it in active. Yes, but what the idea would be, and it doesn't look like it's happened yet. There were some stories on this in the last couple of days, but they were vague, that Great Britain and America, it didn't say NATO, it said Great Britain and America already provided some assurances or said they would provide assurances to Finland, maybe Sweden too, but it was Finland I was reading about, if Finland decided to join NATO for that period between when Finland applies and Finland gets accepted, right? Because the application could be any time within the next few days up until May 16th or so. May 16th was the last one I saw, but one of you guys mentioned to me maybe last night that it looked like it might be moving, or the night before, it might be moving up a little. So they might apply in the next 2 weeks. And then what happens between application and admission or acceptance, which could be 2 months from now? That's your question. That's your question, Timothy, which is, could Russia say, well, we're going to attack really quick? So the idea would be, when they get accepted, whether through a guarantee from NATO or whether because of a guarantee from the UK and the US and whomever, Germany, whomever, that we consider you a part of NATO and an attack on you is an attack on us, period. So that therefore we're going to be involved anyway. It would make sense for NATO to do. Now, what it makes sense for is for NATO to do that for countries with which it is certain we are going to accept. It is clear that we would accept Finland and Sweden. So therefore, for Finland and Sweden, we could make that guarantee. But you are correct. It's a concern, and that's how it would be addressed. The interesting question is, what if Russia were to right now say, I'm going to attack Finland and Sweden too, to stop them from getting into NATO because they don't have the security guarantee yet? That would be interesting. Now, Russia can't afford it. Russia just can't afford it. They're borderline losing to the Ukraine. I mean, one can argue they are losing to the Ukrainians. They can't afford to go to war against NATO and Sweden, who both have really good militaries, right? So I don't see it happening, but that's how you get around it. Let me see here. Let me see. Oh, Jim Sciutto. He is back. Thank you, Stacey. I thought I saw that about Jim Sciutto at CNN. I ran into him on the sidewalk once in DC. It was kind of exciting in my neighborhood. I was like, and I literally went, Jim. And he stopped. He was like, but I knew him from Twitter, and I thought he might know me from Twitter because a lot of people do. And I said, John Arvos is from Twitter. And he said, oh, I remember you. So he was nice. I had a talk with him on the street. It was very funny, though. I was like, Jim. Because you think, actually, I'm sure you guys will do it if you see me too. You see people in video, and it's funny. You get to think you know them because you see them talking on video, but he's Jim. Very funny. Well, that's an interesting question. THC Trump says, what if Putin basically were to nuke somebody, whether it's Ukraine or one of us, but blames it on hackers? Wow. In other words, he would say, this was an accidental nuclear strike. We never meant for our weapons to go off, blah, 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 blah. I mean, if he credibly says Putin nukes New York, he credibly says, I didn't mean to do it. For example, the weapons going over now, we didn't do this. Oh my God. This was what movie I just recently saw, or a TV show I just saw about this, that was sort of the scenario in there. It was very good. It was an old movie, actually. I just saw it the other day. If the president believes him, then we would not retaliate if we really believed it was an accident. If it were then later discovered it wasn't an accident, we'd be at war. But if you could prove it, if they can, not can prove it, but if they really, now having said that, if they said it was an accident or a hacker, we would tell them, okay, you're immediately opening up your entire computer system to us so we can go through your computers and see that it was hacked and that you didn't push the buttons. But if you don't open up all of your, in other words, all of your missile systems now belong to America. We are going to be in every single one of your computers, and we are going to be making sure that you didn't do this. And if the Russians say no, then we say, then we are at war and we're hitting one of your cities. But that is what I would see as being the back and forth on that. But Russia, we wouldn't just believe Russia. They would have to truly prove it, which might not be easy. Jerry Deering, is it possible for Russia to go back on the Hawaii Purchase and try to take back the island? I mean, probably not. I mean, it's sort of Alaska too, right? I mean, you can't really go. Obviously, how would they do it? But you can't really go back on something you purchased anyway. I mean, it's broken. Well, no, we're the ones who purchased it, so we'd have to say it's broken. I mean, how do they do it? How would they do it? Yeah, I don't see it. Good, interesting question. I don't see it happening though. And again, Alaska too. There's no way they could go. You can't go back on it. I mean, there's nothing to go back on. And obviously, we'd be at war with them anyway if they pulled that kind of garbage on us now, right? Oh, that's interesting that it does that. Huh. So I'm looking at the questions here. I am able to highlight, but I don't know whether everybody else can. I'm able to do it, although I'm using a separate person. Somebody's asking me how I highlight names on the YouTube chat that I'm doing, but I'm able to do it because I use StreamYard. I don't know on YouTube directly, but on StreamYard I can highlight names, things which I do. But I don't know how YouTube allows it. All right, let me grab another TikTok question. 5:52. We've got a lot of time tonight. I really did finish early. Well, that's interesting. I mean, okay, that's kind of a funky question. DeB Stud says, if Russia falls, what happens to their weapons of mass destruction? Well, think of it this way. You could kind of look to the Soviet Union, but it fell in a different way. Soviet Union didn't fall to a foreign enemy. It's not like some country took over the Soviet Union. Soviet Union fell because it literally fell apart on its own, right? Well, when it fell apart, the individual countries, the individual parts of the Soviet Union that had nuclear weapons inherited those nuclear weapons. Ukraine, but it wasn't just Ukraine. Ukraine inherited maybe 5,000 nuclear weapons. And this is a whole big issue that they negotiated an agreement with the Russians, the British, and us that we would, in essence, guarantee their sovereignty if they gave up their nuclear weapons. Well, guess what? They gave them up and we did not guarantee their sovereignty. But in that situation, with Russia just literally, the Soviet Union literally dissolving into nothing, into its parts, each country just inherited it. If you had a situation, same thing. If Russia were to just fall apart into a bunch of different regions, then those different regions, correct, the Budapest Memorandum, the different regions of Russia would inherit the nuclear weapons as they become new nation states. Now, whole other question if Russia's conquered. I'm not sure you'll be seeing Russia conquered. You know what I mean? But, if America or Ukraine or somebody were to conquer Russia, then we would denuclearize them, yes. But I don't see that war dream happening anytime soon. Find another one for you. Yeah. Well, why can't Ukraine join NATO? There's a good question. Well, Ukraine has been wanting to join NATO for 14 years now, and NATO has been dragging its feet. I am not the expert on it, but from what I understand, Sarkozy and Merkel were particularly bad about this. Hi, Lena from Sweden. Thank you for joining us. Sarkozy and Merkel were particularly bad, but NATO was basically afraid. Right, NATO said no. NATO was basically afraid that by accepting Ukraine, Russia would get mad at us, and we didn't want Russia to get mad at us. At the time, too, there might have been some legitimate concern as to how democratic was Ukraine at the time. I remember, you had what's his face, the bad president who came in. I'm forgetting. There were a couple P's in a row. Is Poroshenko or Petroshenko? They're like different names. Poroshenko is the good one, I think. But in any case, there was the bad one who was a Russian puppet, right? That came in, and that kind of stuff. I think that was after NATO said no, but NATO still wasn't quite sure if they were a democracy yet. And still the bigger concern was we'd go to war with Russia. Russia would get pissed off and do something. The same concerns, I guess here's the way of looking at it. Look at the same concerns that happened right at the start of the war. How NATO was pissed and kind of wanted to help Ukraine, but didn't want to help them too much because we were afraid, Moscow might get angry. Same kind of concerns happened with regards to that. Okay, thank you. I'm glad you think the commentary is intelligent. Whoever just said that on TikTok. Trying to keep it intelligent. These are tough sometimes, though. Sometimes you guys throw me curveballs. Usually it's Harvey, but other people. Up. There's a question. Wendy. Sorry, I missed your question, Wendy. Wendy TDO. Do you think Russian soldiers are more willing to commit war crimes because of the systemic oppression they experience in their country? Depends. Depends. Okay, sure. There's a couple things to go on. A lot of our guys talk about the Russians' training being so bad. The problem is it's not just training. They are told by their leaders to do these things, right? So Russia's clearly Putin on down clearly makes clear that the war crimes aren't just acceptable, but they're part of the strategy, right? So they're committing these things. You almost have to look at it from their perspective and not our perspective, because we would look at it and say, why are they committing war crimes? Like, are they poorly trained? What is it? Are they whatever? Or like you asked in a way, like, are they damaged? Are they psychologically damaged? That's why they do it. What if they're just committing war crimes because that's another strategy to them? In the same way that we might say, oh, part of our strategy is to use tanks and to use whatever. They say, oh yeah, you use tanks, we use war crimes. We tie up civilians and shoot them. It is literally one of the tactics they use to break the will of the people and scare the country. Honestly, I think they were trying to force Zelensky, I was going to call him, Zelensky, to the negotiating table as well, saying, look at all your citizens we're killing, all the terror we're causing. You should really give up now. Otherwise we're going to kill more people. Yanukovych, that's it. Or Yankovich, however you say it. Yeah, Yanukovych, that's it. Yeah, because Poroshenko, whatever his name was, or Petroshenko, I'm mixing him up with that woman, is the guy that was running against Zelensky, but they made up, which was very nice. I read an article on this. They made up like immediately when the war started. They called each other, got together and said, whatever. The other guy said, whatever I can give you, Vladimir, I'm with you. Poroshenko. Yeah, Petro Poroshenko. Very good of him, actually, to join with Zelensky right when the war started. That was nice to see. But yeah, so I think it's a bigger problem. For example, the systemic oppression in their country, again, is part of the strategy. It's what Russia does. It's not just what Russians do, it's what Russia does. So they consider violence against their own people legitimate political strategy, and they consider violence against citizens in other countries part of their legitimate political strategy. So I guess that'd be my spin on it. So it is tied to the systemic oppression, but it's more tied to it in that the systemic oppression is just another accepted political strategy in Russia, so they export it abroad. So that would be my take. All right, make sure I didn't lose anybody there. Okay, we'll get the deportees back from Russia. I don't know. I'm not sure who AA is, though, but Pam B says, do I think AA, not sure who that is, will get the deportees back from Russia after the war? That's really scary. There are varying numbers, but even Russia, I assume this is what you're talking about. Even Russia says, oh, we've taken hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians into Russia to protect them. We've done look at the wonderful job we've done protecting them. And everyone else is saying, oh my God, you kidnapped all these people. Are you going to bring them back? It's not clear they will. I know, thank you, Jonathan, for that. I know for a fact, we've been seeing the press reports about the fact that when anybody tries to get out of a town being bombed by the Russians in Ukraine, the Russians either don't let them out at all, or they try to force them to go to Russia. I published that open letter from the Ukrainian guy who was in Mariupol. And I published it several weeks ago. And in his letter, he said, thank you for that, Schultz. In his letter, he said that he couldn't get out of town. The Russians kept stopping him. Every time he got somewhere, somebody with a white armband, which is the Russians, would say, no, turn back. He finally escaped anyway. He was able to sort of sneak out via a river, sort of a crazy multi-hour trek through a river. He doesn't swim, but with other people hanging on to him. I mean, just like the stuff of nightmares. And they end up running into more Russian troops. And basically the Russian troops forced them all to go to Russia. He was okay going to Russia for a few days, but he said 85 to 90% of the people with him had no idea what was going on and were basically being tricked and said, oh, yes, this is the way to escape. And the Russians just dragged them to Russia. That does not sound like a country that's going to let you back anytime soon. So I don't know how you get them back. You'd have to know they're there to get them back. That's one of the first problems. And who knows that they're there? Who knows how many people are there, right? I mean, just like the kids. Thank you, Pamela. No one's been. I do love that hat. Like the kids, the children worry me even more. There's talk of 125,000 children or some huge number like that being taken to Russia. Well, what if they were taken there because their parents were killed? I don't mean because, but what if they were taken there and their parents are killed? Who knows they've been taken? Their parents are gone. Their extended family, thank you for the origami there. The extended family could ask and say, okay, where is little Misha who's missing? Well, the parents are missing. The siblings are missing. Mom and grandma and grandpa are missing. So maybe you assume they're all dead. Maybe you assume they all went somewhere else. Or if you find the parents have been killed and you have their bodies, maybe you assume little Misha's been killed too. Like, you don't really know where these kids even are. Even the families. How do you know they're not buried in a mass grave versus Russia stole them? I think it's going to be very hard to get people back unless and until we know who the people are. Oops, sorry. Watching the TikTok thing. That's thank you. That's a cute one. That's always a cute one. Oh, Stacy. Oh, thank you. No, thank you. I appreciate it. Well, like I said, I'm trying to make this a thing if I can, a regular thing. I'm doing it full time and trying to make it a thing. So I appreciate you guys support. I appreciate the things and you guys supporting me, because literally buying questions and things like that and all the wonderful TikTok gifts, you guys are making it possible for me to do this full time. So thank you. I appreciate it. What else we got? Let me jump on. Thank you for the hat. I still want to know, is that Pittsburgh? Who is that hat? I still want to know who that hat is, or is it no team in particular? Connie, thank you for the super sticker. If you had a question, feel free to offer it. Otherwise, if that's just a nice super sticker, I appreciate it. No, nothing on the little girl playing the recorder. Nope. I haven't seen any more reporting on her. Any more reporting on the recorder. I would love for us to find a way of just getting the money. I mean, we can give money anyway for the Ukrainian military, but it would be neat to do it through her. This little girl raised $165 for the Ukrainian military to buy body armor, which is really cute. That's interesting. Greg W. Springs says, thoughts on getting Crimea back to Ukraine. So one of the RS Painter thing and Disney, thank you for that. I was reading an interesting story today, I should say a military expert musing about this, about what Russia, is it the TikTok logo? Okay, I didn't know, Sandra. About what, okay, I'm trying to think through this. What the guy was doing was saying, what if Ukraine decides it wants to go after Crimea? Like, what if it wants to go there? And what he was arguing was, he thinks in the next week or two, you could see a surprise Ukrainian push to drive into Crimea and to basically try to take it back. And I'm trying to remember what his argument was, because he was saying that it could be really bad for the Russians if they do that. Because, I'm sure for starters, it's because the Russians are all in eastern Ukraine or even in the south, they're north of Crimea. But I forgot. I literally read it earlier today, and I was like, that's interesting. But he was thinking, he thinks it's a possibility of them doing it in the next couple of weeks as some kind of a surprise big punch. But as I said, I forgot. Oh, I wish I could remember this. I wasn't using it to prepare for today because I read it and thought it was interesting. But as to why he thought the Russians could crumble, I don't know. No, I don't know. In any case, yeah, it's a possibility. It's a possibility. The other question that comes up with Crimea is, once the war is, when is the war over? If Ukraine is able to push back against Russia significantly, will Ukraine keep pushing until it gets Crimea back? Maybe, right? Maybe. Oh, Solomia is here today. I did not realize that. We've got our one of our wonderful Ukrainian friends, Solomia, because I see Michele responding to her. What else we got here? Okay, let me know if I missed anybody else on YouTube. I will grab another TikTok question. Do I think Putin knows? No, that's actually very funny. And I'll get Harvey's next. Do you think Putin knows who you are? Not yet. I say that it's funny because I had pissed off American presidents before. Like Dick Cheney knew who I was when he was vice president. I'm convinced of that. Long story, but I know Dick Cheney knew. Barack Obama at times knew who I was, I'm sure, because I held his feet on the fire on a couple different gay, specifically gay rights issues like DOMA and gays in the military, that I did some things that blew up pretty big. So I know he knew who I was. Putin, somebody in Russia does, but it's because of the stuff I did previously. I pissed them off. Long story short, but in 2013 or so, the Russians, there was a neo-Nazi group in Russia, and it was literally a neo-Nazi group. They were proud neo-Nazis, and they were kidnapping, going on like apps and social media or whatever, gay apps or whatever it was, but meeting up with young gay people and trans people. They did some trans people too, and kidnapping them. And they would literally say, something like meeting up for sex or something like that or whatever. And they would meet up with them. Of course, you'd enter an apartment and there were like 8 people in there, 1 woman and 8 guys. And they would tie you up, beat you, shave your head, film you, interrogate you on film about being gay and all this stuff, do all sorts of horrible things to you. It was horrific. And then they would put the film on Russian social media, on VKontakte, which is their version of Facebook, I would say. They even put it for a while on Facebook and YouTube, but we got that stuff pulled down. But it was horrific, and it was happening for a very long time. And VKontakte wouldn't do anything about it, which was that idiot Durov's company, and Durov couldn't have given a damn about it at the time. But in any case, friends and I blew up that story because it just wasn't getting covered. And somebody somehow put me in touch with like the Russian activist, and the Russian activist, long story short, got me like 100 of the videos. All sorts of crazy stuff. Finally, Channel 4 in England blew the story up. And that was what finally did it. Once Channel 4 picked it up, then CNN got involved. Then the lead anti-gay neo-Nazi called Tesak, but his real name was like Maxim Martinskovich or something, gets arrested, goes to jail, not for the gay stuff, of course. He got arrested for something else. God forbid they arrested him for the anti-gay stuff, and got killed in jail. So his family is all upset, but he was a Nazi. So I'm not I'm not too upset about him. But anyway, long story short, the Russians took down my blog because they were so upset about the writing I was doing about Putin's favorite Nazis. Oh, and they wouldn't. I'm sorry. The last little point, I didn't mean to go on a long tangent here, was it is a long story short, was that the Russian authorities knew who these people were because the people themselves were showing their pictures in the ads. In the videos. They were interviewing them. They were saying that we knew their names of who these people were. We knew this one woman was in St. Petersburg, and the Russians didn't give a damn. The Russian they literally got interviewed after the Channel 4 thing and said, there are no cases. We have no evidence of this. And we were like, dude, for 2 years we've been. So Putin, they were Putin's favorite Nazis, I called them. And like I said, they tried to take down my website. So somebody knew. I don't think Putin knew, but somebody in Moscow at least has me on a list somewhere. I don't think it's a big enough list, to be worried about. But in any case, where was I here? Harvey, and Sky Queen. There are rumors that Russia was planning to place Viktor Yanukovych as a puppet leader after getting rid of Zelensky Oh, that's funny. I saw some. I didn't see if it was his name. That's interesting. If this turns out to be true, what will happen to Yanukovych after the war? I'm surprised Yanukovych is even. Is he not in some third country? How could he even be in Ukraine anymore? I mean, if he's in, I'd be surprised he's still in Ukraine at this point, to be honest. But the issue becomes like that other guy they arrested. God, I want to say Medvedchuk or whatever his name was. He was running around free for a long time, and they finally only arrested him for treason at the beginning of the war. They may arrest, Yanukovych for treason, man. Sky Queen, when do you think it'll be safe for Ukrainians to return home for those that fled? Will they have much to come home to? Yeah, that's the problem. I know, there you go, Medvedchuk. I remember it was like something like that. Yep, Medvedchuk. Thank you, Mila. Or Mila. I know, for example, the Ukrainian government in the mayor in Kyiv was telling people not to come back. Thank you for that on TikTok. I saw that. People were starting to come back, and he was like, "Do not come back until at least the end of May." And at the end of May, check in again. But it's not safe. Kharkiv. I saw today. Shoot, I thought I was going to I saw some data. I think I was even going to tell you guys, and I forgot. Yeah, it must be on it's probably in my phone. I'm going to do something on it later. Something like a quarter of the homes in Kharkiv have been destroyed, either damaged or destroyed. I mean, really bad. And Kharkiv is the second largest city, 1.5 million people. Really bad. Thank you, Abby. Is it Abby or Ebzy? I appreciate that. So it depends on the definition of safe, I guess, right? First, the war has to stop. There's got to be no more bombing. That's the first. The second is, Mila Aliens, Ukrainian. I did not know that. Hi, Mila Alien. Oh, she's Ukrainian. Okay, sunflowers on TikTok. Sunflowers for Mila. All right. But it depends what safe is at that point, because once they leave, they need sufficient infrastructure to come back, or it's safe for them to return to their homes. I mean, God only knows. God only knows. I mean, again, you can live out west in Ukraine now, though, and it is safe. So there's that. It's returning home to your home could be a problem, right? I mean, now I heard there was something concerned about disease and stuff starting to spread as well, because some of these areas, you've got water, you've got no electricity, you've got no sewage, right? I mean, those kind of problems kick in too, I would think. Okay. All right. I'm caught up on those, I think. Yes. Mila, you're getting sunflowers on YouTube as well. Okay. Let me know if I missed a YouTube question. Just looking to see here. Look at the question. Well, there's a question. That's a question for my friend Marion. I'm trying to think like somebody who knows Russia better than me, but Sandra and Francois von Splunda. Do Russians in general have a different set of morals than the West? Otherwise, I can't understand why they're doing such horrible things. Look, I think to some degree, there is always a there, but for the grace of God go I aspect to human rights violations and everything else. I don't. Sorry, someone on TikTok is asking who Mila is. If you guys would explain who she is to folks, is she another TikToker or who is she? Mom's making chicken. I'm smelling Greek chicken suddenly wafted in from the other room. I'm like my dog going, ooh, like that smell of oregano, chicken, and lemon. Oh my God. Clearly, there's a couple things going on. I think clearly Russia, and again, people who are like Russia experts who only do Russia would know better than I, but clearly Russia's had a problem with democracy for hundreds of years, right? There's something different about that place. And it's not just that their governments end up being awful, but it looks like to some degree the people are okay with the government being awful. And maybe there's an awfulness to the people in terms of the kind of governance they like and want. Also, there's the Lord of the Flies aspect. Anybody who knows that book. Oh, Mila's a TikToker. Okay. Hi, Mila. Was not aware. I don't think I was aware. For all I may follow you for all I know. But when permitted to, people can do bad things. And you've clearly got the Russian government always lifts people to the top who are willing to do very bad things. Let me pull up like Harvey's comment here, for example. Yeah, I mean, they've always been under authoritarian governments. The thing I'm trying to figure out is do they have a different mindset? They probably have a different mindset towards democracy and everything than we do. I mean, they must, on the war crime thing, though, I do feel like to some degree, you get the right leaders together and you create the right enemies, and all of a sudden, I am at my mom's. Yes, I'm visiting mom for the next few weeks in Chicago. You get the right enemy and all of this, and all of a sudden people are willing to do things, even in my own country, not to get too political, but the respect for civil rights and civil liberties and democracy waned a little bit. And I'm worried about the future there, about whether people sufficiently of either political party, but whether people sufficiently respect the democratic institutions themselves. And I think it's far too easy in any country for the Marine Le Pen. I will get political for other countries, whether people like Marine Le Pen, would try to water down what's going on in France. I don't know that she would do the war crimes yet, but anyway, I think it's a mix. I think it's a mix of, we all have a side of the banality of evil, right? We all have a side of us that if the wrong person were to tap into, maybe they could develop in us, which would be really bad. But also there's something really messed up going on with Russia for hundreds of years. And, there may now be a cultural aspect to it, unfortunately. What we got here? Oh, it's 6:15. I'll give you guys another 4 minutes till 20 after, since mom is cooking and driving me crazy. And then I'll just hang till we'll do the usual. Then I'll hang till the half hour, another 10 minutes, just chatting away. We did talk about the Lend-lease. Well, Abu Ghraib. The thing with Abu Ghraib, though, which is interesting that you mentioned Abu Ghraib. Somebody mentioned Abu Ghraib on TikTok. The thing with Abu Ghraib is, though, that fortunately, it wasn't, once it came out, it was a scandal. But meaning it was also a scandal for America. It was a scandal. According to a lot of our politicians, they were not happy. A lot of Americans were not happy. A lot of us thought it was embarrassing. You didn't see people say, oh, yeah, that's okay. We have avgo lemon in the fridge, actually. Mom tried to make me have some for lunch. That's very funny you said that on TikTok. But that's the difference, I think, with a lot of the war crimes that you'll see from America or other Western powers. You see that there is, especially nowadays, there is a strong domestic reaction against them. And it is not nationwide and worldwide policy. So it is not as if the U.S. said, oh, no, Abu Ghraib, it's what we do. Yay. We make fun of dead people and dying people and, strip them naked and, do all the goofy things they were doing. That's not when our higher ups in the military found out, too, they were also pissed. That's the difference between being, I think, a civilized country and an uncivilized country is the military or anybody does bad things. And hopefully when the government finds out, or people in government at least get pissed off, versus the government saying, oh, no, that's our policy. We love that. Now, you could disagree about other policies. You could disagree about, right? I mean, the U.S. has the death penalty. Clearly, that's an official policy. So, I'm not going to say we're pure either, obviously. But Russia takes it to a whole new level. Yeah. But, let me point this out, though. Rita Mary Sanford says Americans have a disregard for human life, too. Genocide of Native American slavery. Note that you have to go back to slavery, which was 160 years ago, or to the genocide of the Native Americans, which is, well, maybe ending around the same time. Not ending around the same time, but I mean, you've got to go back 100 years plus to try to find us doing stuff the Russians do today. And that's the difference. Also, totally different era, because I'm not going to get into slavery and the Native American thing today, but the slavery was, I'm trying to think when it actually started. Not in America, that was 1619 or whatever it was, but in the world, whether it was the 1500s or whatever, 1500s were a different era than today. I'm not going to excuse America or the world's slave past by any means, but anybody who's a slaver today is really screwed up in 2022. Russia is akin to a slaver in terms of their embrace of genocide. That's an entirely different animal. Going after the Native Americans, horrible thing. Back then, people tended to think that they did have manifest destiny, and they did think that Native groups were savages. They were wrong, But if you think native groups are savages today, oh my, I mean, I just think you've also got to look at the era in which things happened. And you can't say that, Americans were bigots 200 years ago or 400 years ago, and Russians are bigots today. So that makes it kind of the same thing. We were all bigots, all of us weren't as good 20 years ago, or probably most of us weren't as good 20 years ago on issues as we are today. That does happen. Whereas I hold much more stock in people who today still commit the same crimes, because today we know better. But again, it's a tough, thank you, it's an excellent answer. It's a tough one too, because you don't want to be in a situation where you sound like you're excusing things of the past, but you got to look at the past in context, and you can't say somebody did it then and they're just as guilty as somebody doing it today. No, they're guilty of doing it then, but you're far more guilty today, because now we really know better, and you're still doing it. In any case, but I'm not going to defend the stuff from back then either, obviously. All right, guys. We've still got lots of questions here. I'm going to call it quits, except that I will hang and chat otherwise. I'm going to call it quits on the questions. There are many racists of all colors in America right now. Actually, I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to post the comment, but you'd be surprised. Racism seems to be something that lots of people, there's a lot of diversity among racism, unfortunately, in America, but we are working on it. Oh, Mikola, I'm sorry, I didn't see your thing. Mikola had thrown up. Did you see Russia? Oh, yeah. Oh, I saw that. Russia said they found a pro-LGBT group in Ukraine run by America, and it must be abolished. I think the plan to use this to foster. So what happened was, this was specifically in Mariupol. They were saying that in Mariupol, now mind you, I don't quite understand how this works, because they're in a steel factory in Mariupol, but the Russians were saying the same location that everybody's hiding out in Ukraine, in Mariupol, there also was an LGBT group run there, and the LGBT group was in part funded by USAID, which is the United States International Development Program, the federal government's International Development Program. And therefore, it was trying to show like that this was a den of horrors, because, oh my God, not just the Nazis were there and, whoever, but they even had LGBT people and America. They were trying to tie America to it. It was some crazy conspiracy. Now, what some reporter did, which I loved in responding to it, which cracked me up. One sec. The reporter said, basically, it was a reporter from ABC, actually, the young guy from ABC who's British, who's been over in Russia, who's been over in Ukraine. He just left the other day doing amazing, Good Morning America, been doing amazing reporting. And he tweeted it out and said, I can just see the contortions now the Russians are trying to do, in that, I know the hat thing is pretty funny. It is pretty funny. To Carol. Every time it comes up, I'm like, but I feel like a bandito or something when it comes up. But the gay group at USAID, the development group. Oh yeah, he was saying that basically the Russians are now arguing that Nazis are defending civil rights. James Longman, that's his name. Thank you. You're right, Koya. He's a wonderful guy. James Longman doing wonderful reporting for Good Morning America over in Ukraine. But basically he tweeted and said, so they're saying that Nazis are civil rights defenders? And he goes, that's going to be an interesting argument. Of course, in Russia, maybe not, because, even in Russia, though. So you're saying Nazis like gay and trans people? I don't think Nazis like gay people or transgender people. I don't think so, but Russia's message does not have to be consistent. It does not have to be consistent. So, Anyway, all right, guys, unless I miss somebody's question, I will just hang out with you for a few more minutes. If I missed another one, point out what it was. Let me know. Let me know. I will be here for another 6 minutes, or at least long enough to find out what the question was. Adam. Elon. Where to start with Elon? The question, you TikTokers, somebody asking me is, what do I think about Elon Musk buying Twitter? I did visit Russia. I visited the Soviet Union in 1984, of all times. and I visited the Russian Far East of all places back in 1993, I think, which was also very fascinating, Kamchatka. But, you know, I am impressed by Elon Musk, in terms of what he has done with Tesla and what he has done with SpaceX. Some people say Tesla, he just bought the design, he didn't create it. Nonetheless, he seems to me that he's created some amazing things with those companies. Personally, he seems a little bit of an overgrown man-child. He tweeted last night he tweeted, I saw the tweet live, that he's thinking of buying Coca-Cola now because he wants to put that drug that used to be, I don't even want to say the word on here so I get in trouble, that stuff that used to be in Coca-Cola 100 years ago back in. Ha ha ha. He made a drug joke. Ha ha ha. I mean, there is a child, I don't mean a childishness in a good way, but there's a very there's something wrong with him. There's something wrong with him. And it worries me. On the Twitter thing, what worries me is he's claiming to advocate for free speech, but he actually picked a side. And that's the problem. He's actually the antithesis of his own argument. He's saying that Twitter shouldn't pick sides politically. He thinks Twitter is intentionally beating up on Republicans because they're on the right versus liberals and getting liberals get away with the same thing because they're on the left. And it's not true. The first problem is the biggest problem on Twitter was neo-Nazis. That was the biggest problem originally. 2016, horrific. I've told you guys these stories before. I'm almost afraid to go through them all because I don't want TikTok's ban thing to click back in. But there were horrible numbers of neo-Nazis on Twitter in 2016. They would attack Jews. They'd attack gays. They'd attack women, black people. What's her face? Leslie, whose name I always forget, who's hilarious. The black female comedian who was on Saturday Night Live, who's really tall, who does all the Olympics commentary for fun. She quit because she quit Twitter because they just, Leslie Jones. No, is it Leslie Jones? Yeah, is it? Okay. They were just horrific what they did to her. They would go after Jewish journalists. I saw them go after this guy who was one of the top New York Times reporters, Julia Yoffe, who's one of the reporters who's always on TV talking about Ukraine, sending them pictures of their loved ones at Auschwitz, basically taking pictures of the ovens at Auschwitz and photoshopping pictures of their family members in the oven. I mean, horrific things. And Twitter wouldn't do anything about it. I mean, it was horrible. So that was the beginning of Twitter clamping down. Then you get all the issue of, January 6th and everything else. And I don't want to get into politics, but, I kind of take a stand on January 6th. It wasn't a good thing. And I don't think you can have people pushing the insurrection. I don't think you can allow Twitter to do that. I just don't want to, again, I don't want to get too political since we're talking about Ukraine, but Elon is claiming, let me put it this way, regardless of what you think of Trump, Elon's claiming that Trump was banned because he's a Republican, and that a Democrat who tried to violently overthrow the government and tweet what Trump did would not be banned. That's ridiculous. If a Democrat did what happened in the Capitol, the Republicans would actually do a much better job than the Democrats of holding the Democrats responsible for it, because Republicans are very good at messaging and Democrats are horrible at messaging. What do you think? Right? So the Republicans would have done a very good job holding Democrats accountable if Democrats did such a thing. And Elon claiming that the only reason Trump and these people or the neo-Nazis got banned is because they're Republican neo-Nazis or whatever is ridiculous. And so you got me on a long one on this, but when you follow Elon and see who he interacts with online in the last day, interacting with Mike Cernovich, you have to know who these people are to appreciate what I'm telling you. But Cernovich is kind of as far right as you can get. I mean, he's not a conservative. He's that, what's his face? I'm trying to forget his name now. Rubin, who's another one who's, a prettier face. He tries to put a prettier face on Cernovich politics, but these are alt-right guys. I mean, Cernovich is alt-right. That's just, and Musk is associating with them, and I don't get it. He's just, anyway, so that's my problem. That's my concern about Musk is somebody who comes in and says, I just want to try even harder for us to be fair in what we do. I'm totally cool with that. But somebody who comes in, ow, my arm is hurting. Somebody who comes in and says, oh, Twitter, they only like liberals, they don't like conservatives. You need to get to learn what was going on Twitter and realize that the biggest problem on Twitter was neo-Nazis. It was literal neo-Nazis, swastikas, and Hitler, literally. And that's how this whole thing started. So that's my take. I don't want to piss anybody off, but it's this Elon, as we said, going back to the beginning of this discussion, Elon Musk is a wild card. Exactly. If somebody said on TikTok, he's very good at Tesla and SpaceX, it seems. I think as a philosopher, he should, he should literally stay in his lane, which is cars. He is not going to bring freedom to the internet when I think he's actually kind of he's kind of in bed with those guys, with the alt-right types, which is kind of scary. So who knows? Anyway, trying to keep it nice. And we could disagree. Yeah. Christy's giving me the bat signal. I got to go, guys. Mom is, as I said, mom is making chicken and I'm hoping it's for me. You can Tree Robotai. You could, my last name at Gmail works. Oh, are people still being like the goofy loony scene? Let's keep the goofy loony thing going. All right. The dogs are fine. Sasha is sleeping next to me. She was a little upset, my dog, because it was raining earlier, and my dog, being the brainiest dog on the planet, figured out it was raining. Even though it was raining hard, she could smell the humidity in the air, or she senses it or something, and was literally scared around 5 o'clock. And I was going, you gotta be kidding me. How did you figure this out? Thank you, Linda, saying hello from Texas. He may pull, somebody's saying Musk may pull out of the Twitter deal. Reuters did a big story on that yesterday saying they think Musk is going to pull out. They think Mom is making Greek chicken. I can smell it. I'm hoping it's for tonight. Well, I try not to make Mom bake because Mom's tired. Mom's getting old and she's getting really tired of having to bake all the time. But I'm hoping the Greek chicken's for us. Put some lemon on it afterwards. Oh my God, so good. So good. All right, guys, just looking here. All right. I'm trying to see who everybody's complaining about, but I'm not sure. Yeah, well. Anyway, all right, guys, I'm going to sign off of Greek. What is Greek chicken? You could Google it. It's not terribly hard, but it's a lot of oregano, lemon, olive oil. Cook it in the oven, and then you put a lot of lemon on afterwards, which is really good. All right, I'm going to hang up on the TikTok. I'm going to say goodbye now to the TikToker so that when I see you guys saying goodbye back to me, I know the delay in the video caught up, because I don't want you all to disappear on me, or I don't want myself to disappear on you, because apparently I've done that in the past and I don't do it now. Thank you, guys. Sasha is asleep on the chair next to me. Okay. Sorry, I'm just seeing what's going on here. Yeah. All right. You know what? Yeah, that's fine. Someone's getting a timeout on YouTube. Only a timeout. This way, if they come back tomorrow and they're normal and they don't fight with people, they're happy to stay. Okay, there we go. The YouTube is caught up. Oh no, the TikTok is caught up. Thanks, guys. All right. Bye, TikTok. All right. And the YouTube. Yep. Thanks, guys, on YouTube. All right. What's going on anyway? Yeah, the mods. Well, it's hard. I will give the mods credit because this was exactly a situation. I'm not sure what was going on YouTube. I was just checking in, but it can sometimes be hard to tell if someone who's disrupting is disruptive or whether they're just disagreeing with the majority. And I'm fine with them disagreeing, but that struck me like it was getting my hair looks better on the TikTok angle. Well, first of all, there's an interesting issue here, which is camera should be I'm now only talking to YouTubers. The camera for like a computer, for example, should be on a box so that the camera should be about eye level, if not a touch higher. My TikTok one is almost my eye level. This is not, so that I'm actually looking down. And when you look down, all sorts of things happen. I mean, the camera should be, I'm trying to even scrunch down because I've got too many wires here, but the camera should almost be at an angle like this, right? That's the difference versus an angle like this, it's totally different. First of all, I would say this makes me look fatter, which is funny. It's one of the things you learn this in doing, because, oh my God, this makes me look a lot fatter. Yeah, it's funny. In any case, this is one of the things you learn in media training, is how camera angle and everything else makes a huge difference. Lighting makes a difference too. The other fun thing for media training, I will just tell you right now, is they teach you, we did one at Daily Coast once at the conference, and they teach you to look at a camera, and then you do it like right now I'm doing a little bit up and to the left, back at the camera, down and to the right, back at the camera, up and to the right. Now I'm going to go down to the left. Each one, you'd have to see it like frozen on the screen, but each one looks totally different if you really were to look at it, project it. Now I'm back in the middle. This one's the best one for me versus this. And it's just enough. We had one woman that was fascinating. We had one woman, because it was back when the blogs were big. So it was like 2006 or 2007. And we're doing the media training. And this one woman, Christy, who was writing at Jane Hampshire's blog at that time, I'm forgetting Christy's name. Christy's wonderful. I'm forgetting her name now. Christy, beautiful woman, beautiful red curly hair. And Christy's looking at the camera, and like and I'm talking literally, it's turning your head just a micro amount. She turns her head one way, and this is how you would look at a TV camera. She turns one way, she looks like a librarian. She looks smart, serious businesswoman, but very smart, intellectual. She literally moves her head a fraction the other way, and she was voluptuously gorgeous. And we laughed because we said, now you look like some gorgeous woman in a photo shoot, versus the other one, you looked like some intellectual law professor. Crazy. So anyway, I'm big on media training for people for that reason, because it's amazing how you don't realize, but you saying just that, how the camera looked different. The camera is different as well. The TikTok camera is probably higher resolution, but also the camera angle matters. I just can't get the angle right on the computer, but what do? It's you all, so I'm willing to look bad. Or worse. All right, guys, I'm going to go. This was great. I will see you all tomorrow. Same bat time tomorrow, 5 p.m. 5 p.m. 5 p.m. Central Time, 5 p.m. Chicago time. All right. Okay. Bye, guys. See you tomorrow. All right.